What's up? Don't mind me. I'm just eating some ice cream with my drink. They don't go together very well. Nope, not really. Not really at all. Okay. This is part 2. Battle of... I never heard it. So I'm going to say it's Yarmouk. So, we're going to go ahead and get into this video. It's 25 minutes. I'm going to do the whole video, I think. I'll just do it. And then, you know, we'll just get into it right now. Video.
Stream, the world's first streaming service that addresses our lifelong quest to learn, explore, and understand his struggle against the Roman Empire. You should definitely check it out. And you can watch it for free. CuriosityStream gives out 30 days of free unlimited access to their entire library to all of our viewers. To thousands of documentaries on CuriosityStream.
Terrain would have a major impact on the course of the battle. The Yarmouk Plateau is predominantly an undulated flat plain, dotted with rocky outcrops. Rivers Yarmouk, Rukad, Allen and Harir slice deep into the level plateau, creating deep gorges with steep cliffs. The grassy plain offered enough fodder and several springs to supply both armies. And the Byzantines were not in a rush. Van was instructed by the emperor to try and pay off the Muslims to go back to Arabia, or at the very least to stall negotiations until the Sasanians were ready to attack in Iraq. Jabala and Gregory did much of the mediation, but as the talks dragged on for up to 3 months, reinforcements sent by Umar began arriving. Concerned that he might lose the numerical advantage,
yeah, having negotiations go on that long kind of backfired. Yeah, really didn't work out for your favor there, bud.
Van took matters into his own hands and asked to negotiate with Khalid in person. By his own words, the Armenian general regarded the Arabs as nothing more than impoverished, hungry, wretched Bedouins, and he offered Khalid food and gold to leave Byzantine land.
I hope he didn't say that to him. You're all just basically peasants, so here, have a handful of peanuts and a glass of milk and beat it.
Unimpressed by Van's condescendence, Khalid responded, "It is not hunger that brought us here," calling on the Christian general to embrace Islam in exchange for peace, adding, "If you refuse, there can only be war between us, and you will face men who love death as you love life." Enraged, Van fired a warning. Better men tried to take our lands, but were all defeated. Negotiations were over. Van...
I would have asked who those better men were. Because... who can you name that would be better than him? Better men have tried. Well, then they weren't better. They tried, and I will. I'm really thinking that this guy right here, and I'm not trying to be, you know, I'm not trying to play spoiler, but I think he's going to lose this battle. I think he's really come across as a, dare I say, and this is scientific, a dickhead.
Positioned the main Byzantine camp near Al-Yakuza, from where one of the main Roman roads connecting Egypt and Syria could be defended. He anchored his battle line to the gorge in the south and arrayed his troops along the Alan River, stretching to the town of Jabia in the north. On his left flank he placed the Slavic infantry, commanded by Kanatir, a Slavic prince. In the center, Jabala commanded the Ghassanid contingent, while Derjan led the Armenians. Gregory commanded the experienced Greek infantry on the right flank. It is said that the last Roman legion, the Macedonian 5th, was under his command. Archers were mixed with the infantry. Cavalry contingents were supporting each of the 4 divisions of infantry. The Byzantine army numbered around 40,000. Across the field, Khalid stretched his infantry to match the length of the Byzantine line, with the left flank anchored on the gorge in the south, while his right flank reached the vicinity of the town of Nawa. He placed Amr in charge of the right flank, Shurabil and Abu Ubaidah in the center, and Yazid
Ubaidah, I know that name.
on the left, with archers mixed in with the infantry. Cavalry contingents were positioned to prevent breakthroughs, while Khalid took command of the hand-picked cavalry reserve. The Arab army was around 25,000 strong. The long battle line, stretching around 10 kilometers across the plain, would test the leadership of commanders on both sides.
Damn, that's a big battlefield. And just, I mean, having to ride your horse down here to relay a message and then ride back, you know, I mean, obviously he's not going to do it himself. He's going to have people doing it, but man, that's a long distance. It's a long distance.
Early on,
Which also makes his success, the fact that he was constantly successful, he must have had a really good chain of command in how he got messages out and back and forth to him. Because you have to be on top of it at all times. You also have to trust your leaders. But yeah, you have to just be on top of it.
on August 15th, the two armies stared each other down. One Arab warrior came forward, dropped his shield and removed his armor, crying out, "I am the death of the palefaces. I am the killer of Romans. I am the..."
Was that pale face a shot at me too? Because it was funny.
"Scourge sent upon you. I am Zara ibn al-Azwar." Several Byzantine officers challenged the Muslim champion. In a matter of minutes, Zara cut them down in single combat.
Damn.
More Muslim champions stepped forward, and as the dueling spectacle continued, Byzantine troops witnessed the slaying of many of their officers. Then, at noon, Van ordered the army to advance. Using his numerical advantage to extend the front, he forced Khalid to stretch his infantry thin, and he planned to probe the Muslim line for any weak spots that he could punch through.
You just witnessed they didn't have weak spots individually. Okay, collectively, sure. But I bet the Khalid's people were kind of like, no, you stay over there. Let's do this one at a time thing. It's really working out for you guys.
As the Byzantine army closed the distance, Van ordered a third of his infantry to advance on the enemy. The fighting was not too intensive, as both sides tested each other's resolve. Nevertheless, Van was surprised by the determination of Arab troops. He observed that the deep gorge to the south would restrict cavalry maneuvers and offer some protection to the Muslim left flank, while the terrain to the north was open, leaving the Muslim right exposed. Khalid was also aware of this problem, and he positioned himself slightly closer to the right wing so that he could reinforce it quickly if necessary.
Nice.
As the day began drawing to a close, Van broke off the attack and ordered his troops back into the position on the Alan River. During the night, both commanders contemplated their next move. Khalid knew that a frontal assault against a better equipped and more numerous enemy would be dangerous, especially when supported by contingents of Byzantine heavy cavalry. Van, meanwhile, was ready to attack and break the Muslims. Early next morning, the Byzantine commander committed all of his troops forward. He intended to catch the Muslims unprepared during their morning prayers. But Khalid expected this. During the previous night, he ordered the construction of outposts in front of his line to prevent any surprise attacks. Despite losing the element of surprise, Van remained confident in his drilled veterans. The Byzantine commander planned to apply steady pressure against the Muslim center in order to tie down as many of Khalid's troops as possible, while focusing the main thrust of his attack on the flanks, where he expected to overwhelm and drive the enemy from the field with his superior numbers. As the two armies clashed, Khalid's men held their ground in the center against the stalled Byzantine advance. But for his troops on the flanks, the situation was different. Kanatir attacked Khalid's right flank in force. The outnumbered Muslim infantry held fast, but were pushed back. Amr ordered his cavalry to check the Byzantine advance in order to buy time for the infantry. The cavalry counterattack blunted the Byzantine charge, but Kanatir kept pushing the Muslims back toward their camp. Women from the camp rallied, and some joined the fighting. They hobbled the camels around the camp, thus providing additional protection. A desperate struggle ensued as the Byzantines could not dislodge the determined Muslim fighters. Kanatir's heavy cavalry bogged down as their horses balked at the smell of aggressive camels, refusing to respond to the commands of their riders. In close quarters, the legs and bellies of the partially armored Byzantine horses now became exposed, and many of the heavily armored riders were pulled down from their saddles. Kanatir could not sustain the attack any longer. With Van's attack against the Muslim right flank broken, Khalid seized the moment to exploit the gap that had opened up between Kanatir and the Byzantine center. He ordered Amr to send his cavalry regiment and attack Kanatir's flank from the north. With incoming cavalry support, Amr ordered a general advance. The three-pronged attack forced Kanatir to abandon his advanced position and retreat towards the main Byzantine line. By timing his flanking maneuver to perfection, Khalid managed to push the Byzantines back with fewer troops. Had it not been for the disciplined retreat of Kanatir's experienced Slavic infantry, the Byzantine flank could have collapsed entirely. But the situation on the Muslim left was considerably more serious. With much of Khalid's mounted units currently on the right flank, Yazid's position was being overrun. Byzantine cavalry broke through the ranks and pushed towards the Muslim camp. Gregory's infantry slowly ground their way forward as Yazid's outnumbered infantry could not stop them. As they fell back to the camp, Yazid's troops were met with a barrage of insults and rocks thrown at them by the ferocious Arab women, who urged them to not let the enemy defeat them, with some of the women taking part in the defense of the camp. Yazid was finally able to stabilize his line near the camp, temporarily stemming the Byzantine assault. Just as Van's plan appeared to be succeeding on the Muslim left, Khalid again showed his ability to adapt quickly. With the right flank stabilized, he dashed across the battlefield to aid the embattled Yazid. He detached a cavalry contingent under the command of Dara ibn al-Azwar, ordering him to round the Byzantine center. This decision proved crucial, for when Dara struck the flank of the Byzantine center, he fixed them in place, preventing reinforcements from reaching Gregory to support his push against the Muslim left. But most importantly, this maneuver gave the impression to the Greeks that they were being outflanked, damaging their morale. Further on the left flank, Khalid came to Yazid's aid, hitting Gregory's division. The Greeks gave ground under pressure, suffering particularly heavy casualties. During the fighting in the center, Dara's troops killed the Byzantine commander, Derjan, who fought with his troops in the front. Finally, as dusk approached, the two exhausted armies ceased hostilities for the day. For Van, losing one of his key lieutenants was an enormous blow, and the speed of Khaled's counterattacks exposed weaknesses in his plan, forcing him to change tack. The battle resumed with the Byzantine. The battle resumed with the Byzantines again advancing on the Muslim line. This time, however, Van focused mainly on Khaled's right flank, where the Byzantine heavy cavalry could do more damage. Bitter fighting ensued as the Byzantine heavy cavalry charge outmatched Arab light mounted units. Amr's division fell back, followed shortly by Shurabil. As Jabala's flank slowly became exposed, Khaled sprang into action at this critical moment, charging into the gap towards the Ghassanid flank. Finally, Amr managed to rally his forces and re-engage. Shurabil too reorganized after taking some losses and went on the offensive. The fighting developed into a bloodbath as the outflanked Ghassanids took a heavy beating and retreated in disarray. Seeing Jabala disengaging, Kanatir too withdrew in good order. Khaled's well-timed flanking attack again stopped the Byzantines. The next day, Van persisted with the same battle plan. Kanatir led the Slavs again.
Why are you following the same plan? You've seen now your day 4, so you've seen 3 days of fighting, and in the 3 days you've seen how your exposure turned into a weakness. So why are you continuing to do it? Unless you don't have any other battle plan. This plan has always worked, and you've never faced someone that has the ability to quickly recognize something and counter it. That's probably what it is. And he's probably used to having overwhelming forces.
Against Amr's division. Jabala's Ghassanid division, now reinforced by Van's Armenians, advanced on Shurabil. As soon as they met the Byzantine charge, the Muslims were hard pressed. Arab light cavalry was especially having trouble holding the push of the imperial cataphracts. Meanwhile, Van ordered the Armenians and Greeks forward at a slower pace. Khaled now feared a general Byzantine assault along the entire line.
I bet you he was probably hoping that the line here would turn and help. And he didn't allow it. You know, you guys got to watch those guys. So that's why he probably was bringing them along slowly. I'm just guessing. Probably bringing them along slowly, hoping they would break through, which would cause them to turn, and then they could attack them from, you know, kind of from the flanking side. That's my best guess for that.
He understood that, considering the losses on the previous day, he no longer had the numbers to repulse a general advance by Imperial troops, and his cavalry reserve would not be able to reinforce both flanks at the same time. To avert disaster, Khaled sent Abu Ubaidah and Yazid forward, aiming to stall Van's advance and buy some time for his troops on the right. He then hastily rushed towards the gaps that opened between Shurabil and Amr, as their lines started buckling under the weight of the Byzantine attack. Meanwhile, the Muslim left held the initial Byzantine push, but Van reinforced the attack with horse archers, subjecting the Arabs to ceaseless barrages of arrows. The point-blank volleys caused such losses to Abu Ubaidah's and Yazid's divisions that the incident became known as the Day of Lost Eyes. Unable to withstand the storm of arrows, the Muslim left retreated to get out of range of Byzantine archers. On the other side of the battlefield, Amma rallied his forces and halted Canatir's advance, while Khalid shored up Shurabil's ranks and pressed Jabala's division. The Ghassanids fought stubbornly, but having taken heavy losses, they slowly gave ground. Now that he was committed on the right, Khalid's worst fear was realized. Gregory ordered the general advance of his division, sensing that the Arabs were shaken by the losses they took from Byzantine arrow volleys. Sure enough, Yazid's battered division gave way, with Abu Ubaidah barely holding Van's Armenians. With the Rashidun left in dire straits, Arab women from the camp picked up weapons and joined the fighting.
Holy
The desperate
shit.
last stand of the women inspired the Muslims to hold their ground against all odds. Meanwhile, on the right, the Byzantines fight.
Just real fast. To the women. Because you know there's a point where they're not going to try to kill the women. Women pick up a sword, they run into the fight. You know, you're going to... But you're not going to try to kill them. You're going to try to knock the weapon out of their hand, maybe kick them to the ground. I shouldn't say that. Let me clarify it by this. In war, if I'm in war and a woman picks up a sword and she charges me, I'm going to have to kill that woman. Wow, that's something you don't think you're going to say out loud. Wow. Yeah, no. Yeah, I'm going to kill that woman. I probably shouldn't say it so loud. I would definitely have to kill that woman. Or women's. Yeah, no. Yeah. Okay, yep.
Finally retreated after several hours of fighting, and the rest of Van's line soon followed. The fourth day of the battle was devastating for the Arabs, particularly the left wing. But incredibly, they managed to hold back the Byzantines. Next morning, Van unexpectedly sent an emissary offering a truce. Arab commanders met for an impromptu war council. Some argued to accept the truce, seeing it as a victory after fighting a much larger army deep within enemy territory, while others noted that the men are tired, wounded, and vastly outnumbered.
But you also have to ask, why is he sending, trying to get a peace treaty? Because if you're truly winning, if you truly... You have the military, the men. You're beating them. Why would you do that? To me, you would only do it if you're losing, because you're not going to pity the opponent. Yeah. I don't know.
The consensus was to leave and come back to fight another day. Khalid listened to his comrades, then stood up, saying, "The past 4 days tested our resolve. Now is not the time to concede. Now is the time to be decisive." He argued that the strategy was to be on the defensive, wear out the enemy, then counterattack. And now he sensed that the Byzantines lost heart and that Van was trying to buy time to raise morale of his troops.
Yeah.
The time to attack is now. There would be no truce.
Do you have a sweet tooth? Well, today I'm going to show you a brownie in a mug recipe that you can eat completely guilt-free. This recipe is delicious, easy to make, and most importantly,
During
for 4 days, they've attacked them, and they just can't beat them. Khalid Khalid always gets him to stop, holds his men, or the women do. If he comes out this morning and leads the charge, yeah, that probably would crush, because then Vahan would probably think, come on, man, just stop. And it would,
In the night, Khalid inspected the troops. Wounded soldiers leaned on each other, but even in the face of such overwhelming odds, their spirit never wavered. Determined to go on the offensive, the Muslim commander sent Daraa with 500 riders on a wide flanking maneuver to capture a key bridge across the Rakad Gorge that served as a main line of communication between the Byzantine army and their camp. The fight back has begun. As the sun rose on the next day, from the Byzantine line a hulking figure trotted out on his warhorse into the no man's land. It was Gregory, the commander of the Byzantine right flank, reputed to be a formidable fighter. Abu Ubaidah answered the challenge. As the overall strategic commander of Arab forces in Syria, before leaving he told Khalid, "If I don't return, you shall resume command of the army after the battle, until the Caliph decides otherwise." And with that, the tall, slim figure of Abu Ubaidah, a man in his 50s, rode out to meet Gregory.
Damn.
The two met in the middle, both excellent in single combat. Circling each other, they traded blows for several minutes, as both armies anxiously watched. Then Gregory ran back towards his line, a trick designed to fool Abu Ubaidah into lowering his guard. As the Arab general caught up with him, in a split second Gregory turned to strike. Abu Ubaidah ducked to evade the blow, striking the Greek general across the neck with his blade. Gregory dropped his sword and slumped from his horse. Moments later, Khalid ordered the Muslim line forward. Having spent most of the night reorganizing the troops, Khalid left a token force of cavalry behind the infantry divisions, spreading their formations to make it appear to the Byzantines like the disposition of the Arab army remained the same as it was during the previous day. And he took all of the remaining cavalry, hiding it in the shallow dips of the plateau. Some of the men in the Byzantine line could hardly believe that, despite such heavy losses, the Muslim army went on the offensive. As the clash in the center erupted, the Arabs pressed hard. They were determined to drive the enemy back, but their substantial numerical disadvantage meant that they could not sustain this battle of attrition for long. Just as Van's troops managed to slow the momentum of the Muslim advance, Khalid sprung his trap. From the gentle dips in the terrain, 8,000 riders galloped forward. By amassing most of his cavalry, Khalid planned to surround the Byzantine left flank. Knowing that time was of the essence, he urged his men to ride fast and without hesitation. Speed would decide the outcome of the battle. Busy with commanding the troops in the center, Van glanced to the left and saw the ominous cloud of dust. He scrambled to send his cavalry to cover the flank, realizing that the Muslim commander had outwitted him. In full gallop, Khalid surged past Amr's division and began to envelop Canatir's Slavs. The rest of the Arab riders followed their general as he guided them around Byzantine ranks. Over his left shoulder, Khalid could see the fierce fighting in the center as he pushed his steed to go faster. Canatir's and Jabala's line began folding as they braced for the impact of the Arab cavalry. As the Muslim riders smashed into Van's left, Khalid pierced an enemy soldier, breaking his lance in two. He drew his sword, striking anyone in a red tunic. The horses twisted and turned, wreaking havoc among the Byzantine infantry. Jabala and the Ghassanids disengaged and started fleeing. But to their horror, they realized that the bridge across the Ricard, their main escape route, was blocked. Jabala's troops dispersed as each man tried to save himself. Canatir fought on bravely, but the Slavic division was surrounded and stood no chance. The entire Byzantine line began collapsing. Shocked by Khalid's rapid maneuver, the Imperial heavy cavalry tried in vain to stem the tide. The noose was tightening as Van's army was being pushed back towards the cliffs. The Armenian general barked orders, and while some Byzantine units kept their cohesion, others were in total disarray. Unable to cope with the rapid movement of the Arab light cavalry, Byzantine cataphracts were attacked on all sides. Seeing that the situation was hopeless, they fled, abandoning the infantry to their fate. Khalid steadied his steed, closed his eyes, and whispered a prayer of gratitude. Though it was not immediately apparent, he knew that the battle was won. Van's army was cornered against the steep cliffs of the Ricard and Yarmouk gorges, and over the next several hours Byzantine troops were systematically killed. Such was their desperation that hundreds, if not thousands, of Imperial soldiers jumped to their deaths from the cliffs to escape the wrath of Khalid's troops. On that day, the Rashidun army achieved a victory that would change the course of history forever. The Battle of Yarmouk was certainly the battle of the century and one of the most pivotal battles in world history. The juggernaut that was the Byzantine army was made up of disciplined warriors who probably thought they can easily outmatch the Arabic desert army. Unfortunately for them, in Khalid ibn al-Walid, they faced possibly the greatest military mind of the age. In just a few short years, he restructured the ragtag Arab forces into an army that would conquer half of the known world. On August 20th, 636, at Yarmouk, after 6 grueling days, only one side was left standing. Islam stepped onto the world stage. Credit goes to our...
That's a great line to end on. Islam stepped onto the world stage. That's a great line. Wow. So he's buried in Syria, I was told. And can you, I mean, let's pretend like there isn't anything going on right now in Syria, and can you go there? Can you visit his grave? Because I think that would just be awesome. Because there are, as I learn more about a lot of things, oh, how about that? A big thank you, generous Patreons. Epic History TV is one of them for History March. That's pretty cool. Or it's just somebody going by the name of Epic History TV. No, I'm pretty sure it's them. Yeah. This is good. He really just is a very, I don't know. I mean, his mind, his military mind, his leadership, his plans, his strategy. It blows my mind, because you think of that time, you think, well, they couldn't have been, as smart as us. We would have better ways of, okay. But a lot of ways that we have today are ways that we studied by previous people like him. And then you have to wonder, well, where the hell did it come from him? Apparently, it came from here and here. He had the mind, and he just had the heart and determination. You know, he's an amazing guy. He really is. I'm going to end this here. Just a preview, I'm going to be doing a video on you know what? Let's call this a sneak preview. I'm going to be doing a video on Septimus Severus. You're probably saying, well, who's that, Kris? Let's click on this. The African emperor. He is considered the first. He was an African emperor of Rome / Britain. I only know about what I just told you. And they have statues of him and stuff like that today that are white. And he was a black man. And so it's kind of funny how we change the skin color of some people in history. Because it may not be the narrative that they want to tell. But he's coming up next. So yeah, I think he'd be pretty interesting. Not to try to drag it down, but I think it's an interesting thing. And I found another video on him, Khalid. It was like 38 minutes. And I don't remember what it was called now, but I'm going to do that one as well. But I got a couple things I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to end this one here. Appreciate it. Something caught my attention. Sorry. Appreciate the watch. Like and subscribe. And, you know, continue to watch and support. And I will continue to knock these out. And pass along things so that I can... what is this? The battle that saved Islam? And stopped the Mongols. Okay. Okay. All right. Thanks for watching. Christopher.